What does healing from violence mean to you?
I learned from an elder there was no way I was ever going to be able to heal from anything that had happened in my life without forgiving myself first. So then, if that part of me isn't there anymore, then who is here? I found out who I was without the pain and the scars, and that I could start the healing process. Healing for me, I learned who I was without the pain and the scars of trauma.
What does healing from violence mean to you?
Turning from a child into an adult. Because I had so much trauma, I had stayed a child. A part of me still is, and the more I grow from everything and mature and learn, the more the child goes away. So turning into an adult for the first time, even though I'm 28 years old. Healing meant for me, healing the inner child is also important, even if we are adults.
What does healing from violence mean to you?
Waking up every day going, yeah, I'm awake, versus waking up every day going, what? God didn't take me in my sleep? I can live. I don't just have to survive. So in healing, you breathe. You walk taller. You're straight. Your posture is good. You're not all hunched over. Healing from violence is difficult stuff, but once you start, you smile easy again. And it's not that fake, like, okay, let me just smile and get through it. You smile from your heart again, from your eyes. Healing is waking up and embodying your healing.
¿Qué significa sanar de la violencia? Sanar es un proceso que cuando lo hables y lo recuerdas, ya no te duele. No he tenido la oportunidad de hablar un 100% de lo que en verdad ha pasado. Por miedo a no tener suficientes recursos económicos para seguir teniendo a mis hijos de pie y conmigo. Entonces, tal vez mi proceso de sanación va a ser el día que mis hijos sean adultos. Entonces, aquel día busco a alguien con quien hablar y decir, me hicieron esto, me atacaron de esta forma, me destruyeron de esta otra. Pero cuando mis hijos ya no salgan perjudicados por haber compartido mi testimonio, tal vez en ese momento, si Dios quiere, voy a estar sana completamente. Mientras, no. There is healing in sharing your story, but sometimes we are not able to talk about healing or think about what that even means until our basic needs are met and our children are safe. The testimonies shared are part of a research study spearheaded by Voces Unidas for Justice and are a portion of a greater effort taking place in the state of Colorado to bring resources to communities of color, both the healers and those longing for healing. 2018, Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition released the Victims Speak report, which found that out of the 500 self-reported victims of crime who were surveyed in the Denver metro area, Black and male victims are the least likely to receive victim services, which present major gaps in victims' access to treatment and services. 2019, Community Crime Victim Services funded 5 programs and found that across all people served across all programs, a majority had experienced 8 or more violent crimes over their lifetimes. They also found that 83% had been victimized 3 or more times, but only 1 in 10 received victim services. 2020, Finding a Healing Way research project was launched by Voces Unidas for Justice. We surveyed self-identified and underserved victims of crime across Denver and Colorado Springs to ask what helps survivors heal from traumatic events, what could have prevented revictimization from happening, and to ask what supports and services were or could have been most helpful. 2021. Our campaign launched to share across Denver and Colorado Springs all of the healing wisdom from the collective experiences of communities of color through a video series. These social movements highlight the need to hold systems accountable, a reality that many service providers of color in the victims service field also expressed, as shared by one who was interviewed for Finding a Healing Way research study.
After struggling in my own life through my adolescence, I went to school and I learned a lot of lyrics to the music that had already been playing in my head my whole life. I learned about power, about privilege and oppression, about systemic racism, structural inequality, and about white supremacy. These words were all brand new to me for the most part, and it shifted my thinking away from the need to help individuals to adapt to their conditions to addressing the structural inequalities and systems which perpetuate these conditions to begin with, and I ask myself, what's the best way for me to help?
As the Finding a Healing Way study was beginning to ramp up, so was COVID-19, and shortly after, so did the Black Lives Matter protest across the country, including Denver and Colorado Springs. As a team of all women of color, we set out to ask not just about the symptoms of oppression, such as domestic violence, community violence, and sexual violence, but also to look at the systems in our society that can either be obstacles or open doors to helping and healing. These systems include law enforcement, victim services, social services, and nonprofits, among others. When the study questions were finalized, COVID-19 effects were also included to take into consideration the context we are all living in. By the time the study was launched, the Black Lives Matter protests were happening too. No question in our study was designed to ask about this, and yet it was ever present in what was said and what wasn't. The effect of the individual accumulated traumas made worse by the collective pain and justice seeking was captured in various testimonies. As a community-based research team who identify as part of the affected people, and as professionals in the field working to eliminate gender-based violence, we reject any form of victim blaming of survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, and reject any belief, theory, or ideology that blames Black, Indigenous, and people of color for their trauma and suffering without taking into account how systems and institutions also impact the well-being of BIPOC communities. We ask viewers to hold on to this and warn against focusing only on individual behavior while ignoring social responsibility and the need for systemic accountability. What does healing from violence mean to you?